If you look up who invented hard flips, you'll get a lot of answers that basically say nobody knows. Some will say Daewon did, some will say Rodney Mullen, but they're all wrong. So who was it? Let's take a look. Back in the 1992 video Love Child, Daewon's song landed the first ever recorded hard flip. Eric Costin followed up later the same year with the first recorded switch one. But where did the trick actually come from? In an episode of Epically Latered, Daewon talks about a kid named Dan Gallagher, and how he might have been the first one. He's talking a lot of trash about it, but I think he's just messing around.
I actually did hear of one person who did it, this guy Dan Gallagher. Rodney was saying that he thinks he did it, and I'm pretty sure he did do it, but I don't want to give him full credit. But who got it on footage first? Over a huge gap.
There's also a Transworld article with a quote from Rodney Mullen, where he says, "At the time, 1991, Dan was as technical as anybody I'd ever seen. He was the guy who made up hard flips. The first person I'd seen do a nollie hard flip and double nollie flips when nobody else could." If Rodney Mullen says he's the first, I've got to take his word on it. Nobody knows as much about technical skating and flip tricks as that guy. But who is Dan Gallagher? Dan was a very little known skater. He was in one video called Ground Rules in 1991, around the time he invented the hard flip, but it's not actually in the video. You can see some of the crazy stuff he was doing though. He was probably the first to do a nollie 360 flip. He says he met Rodney Mullen and showed him that trick, and that's how they became friends. You know, it blows my mind that people were doing nollie 360 flips, front foot impossibles, and all this really difficult stuff, but nobody had thought of the hard flip yet. People were doing varial flips already, of course, and frontside flips since at least 1989, and yet nobody put that together. So this is Dan's story. He used to do nollie backside 360 shove-its a lot. It's originally a freestyle trick. People had been doing 540 and even 720 versions for years. But in the late 80s, people were starting to take the trick to street, and even getting a little bit of pop, but not much. So Dan was doing this trick a lot, and he started to imagine if he could throw a kickflip in there, which would be a nollie 360 hard flip. He could do nollie 360 flips and thought it had to be possible to do it the other way. Eventually, he kind of gave up on landing that and settled for the 180 version, what we would call a nollie hard flip. He learned the nollie, then switch, then regular, then fakie, and even started experimenting with landing in pivots and things like that. By the time Daewon recorded the first one, Dan had already done it in every stance. Okay, so what about the name hard flip? Dan says that he would have to tell people. It's a 180 varial kickflip, but frontside, the hard way. And eventually I just called it the hard flip because I got sick of explaining it. Now I've made a few videos about hard flips and hard flip related tricks before, and I'm always surprised to see people argue that hard flips are always vertical, and there's a such trick as an inward kickflip. A hard flip can't be flat or it doesn't count. Honestly, I thought that argument died out years ago before the internet. Dan's story about the name of the trick makes it obvious how it started out. A frontside varial kickflip, or a hard way varial kickflip, or a hard flip. Anyway, it took a while for the name to catch on. In 92 and 93, Big Brother magazine had some interesting captions for tricks. Here's Daewon doing a hard flip tail slide. It calls it a frontside varial kickflip tail slide. Not technically wrong, but obviously the name hadn't gotten too far yet. The next year, in 93, Rob Dyrdek did a backside big spin heel flip on a bank, or a backside inward heel. The caption calls it a backside hard flip. That's pretty interesting. They kind of interpreted hard flip as meaning the hard way in general, sort of like alley-oop for body rotations. If you ever want to laugh, read some of the early 90s skate magazines and check out the trick names. They're all over the place. In one issue, an inward heel is called a backside hard flip, in the next it's called an inside heel flip. Nobody really knew what was going on because all this stuff was brand new. So not too long after that, hard flips were starting to catch on, and there needed to be a standard name for people to use, and it ended up being hard flip. So what do you think about Dan's story? Now, of course, skateboarding is global. Some unknown guy in the Philippines might have done a hard flip in 1985 for all we know. But to me, I think it checks out. Rodney Mullen said he invented it, and he was doing a ton of advanced nollie stuff at the time. Even without footage, I think it's safe to say he did actually land it first. Now, as far as all the details are concerned, like how he did it in every stance before anybody else, and how the name came from him too, well, that's all unprovable. I don't know. I tend to believe him, but you just never really know. Alright, well that's all for this time. What other tricks would you like to see me explore? Do you know of any other unknown trick inventors? Any unsung heroes who deserve some attention? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for checking out the video. Here's some more recent stuff that you might like. If you liked the video, hit the like button and subscribe below for more skateboarding content like this every single Tuesday. Thanks for watching.